Hey, what's going on, guys? Good morning, good morning, good morning. My name is Dr. Boyce Watkins, and I want to say hello to everybody. And I'm also here with Alicia. We're on our way to the airport. How you doing today, Alicia?
I'm good. How are you? What is on your mind, voice?
You know what was on my mind today? I was thinking about. I saw this crazy story with Lisa Bonet, and I don't know if you saw this story or not. Lisa Bonet was basically saying that, or it wasn't her. She didn't really say it. It was actually her ex husband Jason Mamoa, who was saying that they basically went broke. That they were starving financially when he lost his job on Game of Thrones. Did you see that?
I did not see the article, but you told me about it. And so, how long ago was Game of Thrones when he was on there? That was a while ago.
Yeah, he got killed off early. They killed him.
Okay.
They killed him off like that's how you know he might be part black because he was one of the first people to get killed. Y'all know what I'm talking about. You know how they killed the black characters first.
But wait, he did Aquaman. Didn't he make money from that?
Yeah, yeah, but that was after Game of Thrones. That was after
Way
the
after.
comeback. Yeah, yeah. People usually don't tell their I went broke story until after they're not broke no more.
I see. It's the comeback story. That's what it's about.
Oh yeah, it's always a comeback story.
Uh huh.
Give me a yes or no in the chat. Give me a yes or no if you heard that story about Lisa Bonet's ex husband saying that they were starving. I hope that was an exaggeration. Like I hope that they were joking when he said they were starving. This was back in 2011, 2012.
Oh, okay.
But I hope it was a joke. You think they were real? You think they were really starving? They think he was just being dramatic.
What do you think, boys?
I think he was being a little dramatic. I mean, because even back then he was very famous. So famous people don't usually have to starve. I mean, I think somebody will give you a cheeseburger or something.
Well, what did he do with all that Game of Thrones money? What do you think?
Well, the question is, how much money was it? I think that's one of the things a lot of people don't know and don't understand is that these actors ain't really balling like people would think.
Ah, okay. So, well, you would know. What do you think?
Well, I'll say this. With Boyce Watkins Films, we've made several movies, and in some of the movies we've hired actors,
Okay.
and I was actually stunned by how inexpensive some of the actors are. If you get them on a small project for like a day, they'll usually have like a day rate, and the day rate will be like like maybe a couple $1,000s or something, which isn't bad when you're
Huh.
making a movie, and it'll be somebody that you really know. I'll be like, yeah, I watched their show in the 1990s, and
And you're paying them.
yeah,
That's crazy. Yeah.
yeah. Well, that's the thing. Like sometimes if a lot of these actors don't know anything about business, so they'll have a brand, they'll have a multi-million-dollar brand, but have no understanding of how to monetize that brand. You know.
Oh, so I mean, that this guy from Game of Thrones, Jason. I mean, he seems like he could be a model, a very successful model.
Hmm.
Um, we were watching that Game of Thrones because look at him, So he's
Right.
definitely a demand for him. Like, what happened with his agent? What happened with his career? Like, I mean, the intricate details I don't really know very well, but it would make sense, you know.
I think a lot of it is like you might say, well, he's really handsome, so he should have an acting role all the time. But there's a lot of handsome guys in Hollywood. There's a lot of beautiful women in Hollywood. You know, like it's like So if you do an audition and you say we're looking for a beautiful woman, you're gonna have like a 10,000. You know, if
Yeah,
it's
dime a
a
dozen.
big role. Well, yeah. I mean,
Hmm.
they're not. It's not like you're so pretty or handsome that you can't be replaced. You
I
know.
see.
Yeah, so
Hmm.
they probably just went with a different handsome guy in some of the movie roles. Like we got 100, we got 3,000 of them. Like, okay, let's pick handsome guy number 488.
But he has a very unique look, though. There's not many people
Yeah,
that look like him.
yeah, I can see that. Yeah, I can see that. Yeah, yeah. I mean, I get that. And I think also what's interesting to me about it is that it kind of I thought the story was worth talking about because it kind of shows a lot of people that everything that glitters isn't gold.
I see.
A lot of people think, oh yeah, if I become a rich famous actor, I'm gonna definitely be, doing well. And people don't understand that rich and famous don't always go together.
I see. Huh.
So I don't know. And then it made me wonder also. I was like thinking about this, right? And I was thinking, but your wife is Lisa Bonet. Like, what is she doing? Like, is she making any money? Like,
I know her daughter is doing excellent. Her daughter is doing really good work. Zoe.
What's her daughter doing?
She acted on what is it called? Big Lies on HBO.
Oh,
Big Little Lies, and did a phenomenal job.
You know what? I think I've seen her daughter.
Yeah, phenomenal. Yeah. So their whole family, she should be making some money. I mean, she's done cameos in some movies. She's got to still be making Cosby money, right? Or is that run out?
You know what? I bet you that the Cosby money is shot because Cosby's, they've gone out of their way to make sure that, that his image is totally destroyed. That's what white people do when they get mad at you,
Yeah, I feel sorry for people in Hollywood because whether you have money or not, you have to portray and show the picture, show a facade that you actually do have a lot of money.
Yeah.
It's like you have to keep up. With regular people, we don't have to spend all this money on makeup and hair and outfits and where you live and, styling and profiling. We don't have to do that, regular people.
But that's why a lot of people go broke. A lot of people go broke trying to impress people that don't even fucking matter. Like people that you don't even know hardly. Like you're trying to impress these people. Some of these people don't even like you, and you're trying to impress them, and you go on broke trying to impress them. And it's not just actors and actresses. It's a lot of just like professional people. Like I know people that went to Harvard who make the same mistake. It's like, oh well, because I'm the only person in my family who went to Harvard Law School, I'm supposed to have certain kind of clothes. I'm supposed to drive a certain kind of car. I'm supposed to live in a certain kind of neighborhood. When we go to dinner, I can't go to Wendy's no more. I got to go to Shea Whitey's for dinner. And I always have to pick up the tab. And when Little Cousin Rerun calls, because they get about to get evicted, because I have survivor's guilt, I got to be the one to bail Cousin Rerun out.
Well, why can't you just say no? Why can't you just say, I don't have the money right now? What is wrong with being just honest and say, this is not a good time for me right now?
I don't disagree with that. I think that what happens is when people get called sellouts and, oh, you don't care, or you being uppity. Remember Vanessa Williams' character on Soul Food, and how she was like a lawyer making all that money, and she got pissed because she was always being asked to pay for everything when Big Mama was dying.
Well, that's her role in the family. You take on roles in your family. Everybody takes on a certain role, and if you step outside of that role, people get mad at you. You can't change. You can't change in family.
So you're saying don't take on the role?
Well, you just have to challenge it and say, this is something I'm not going to do anymore.
Yeah. It's almost kind of like, oh, you know what? I said, Lisa, I think I said ex-husband or something in the title.
Are they married? That's what I was going to ask.
I can't remember.
They got to be married.
I just assumed they were divorced.
Look it up.
You know what? I probably made the false assumption they were divorced. Since it seems like everybody gets divorced. I got to change that.
Everybody does not get
divorced. Are they
divorced.
married? Give me a yes or no. Is Lisa Bonet still married to Jason Momoa? Let me know if...
Wait, I'm going to Google it.
Yeah, they aren't starving anymore, Kayla. What happened was he said that they were starving, but this was like 2011, 2012 when he lost his job on Game of Thrones. I don't know if anybody saw Game of Thrones. He was really good on Game of Thrones. So he lost his job, and he basically came out and said they were starving. Now, the thing is that people don't tend to tell that terrible they don't talk about their financial tragedies until after the tragedy has been corrected, like after it's been fixed. Like once it's been fixed, then they're like, yeah, this is what I went through. I just didn't tell anybody. I was hooked on drugs and I was going through a silent hill, or I was starving to death, or I was homeless and nobody knew.
Well, how did he fix it? What did he say in the article? I haven't read it.
You know what? I read the article, and literally, I don't think there was a moral to the story other than to just tell the story. I didn't get a moral.
What you want to know? Like, okay, tell me, what did you do to fix it?
I didn't see him say, this is how I fix it. It wasn't like he was saying, and then I embraced financial literacy and investing, and I got things. No, it sounded like he was like, I got a better job.
Well, let me tell you, right now in this pandemic, there's going to be a lot of actors and actresses that are going to be starving because I don't know of anything shooting Are any movies or anything being shot right now, or what?
No, they're not. Hollywood's kind of shut down, and also, yeah. I mean, like you see a lot of like rappers that are normally on tour, and they're sitting at
Ain't no
home.
tour money
They're
coming
sitting at
in.
home doing Instagram videos, and I think Lisa, what's her name? You know, the lady from Gary that was in Players Club. You know what I'm talking
She's
about?
not from Gary. She's from
Lisa Ray.
Chicago. Lisa Ray is
Oh,
from
that's right.
Chicago.
Okay, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Lisa Ray. I think she. I'm not sure. Give me a yes or no if you know this. And I think Lisa, I could have swore I read that Lisa Ray created an OnlyFans. And OnlyFans is usually like, for women that do, racy stuff.
Is
And
it?
yeah. I think so. But I think people are using it for all different kinds of
What do you
stuff,
mean racy stuff?
like getting naked and stuff like that.
Oh, well, that's how she got her start on Players Club.
Well, I'm
That's how
not.
that was her big debut.
Well, I ain't gonna knock the hustle. Whatever they do, that's their right. But I think that they're in a situation where they're having to think about creating economic realities for themselves that they didn't have before. Like if you're a performer and you're living concert to concert, what are you gonna do? When you can't have concerts, and you may not have them for years, like
Yeah, it's gonna be a
vaccine or
while.
not. I don't really see a lot of concerts and stuff happening. Like I think the culture of society has shifted forever.
I'm really worried because you were watching the football highlights, and
Right?
I was just worried about there's nobody in the stands. I feel like the NFL and the NBA are going to lose a lot of money, and
Yeah.
who's going to hurt are the players.
Yeah,
Like,
they're gonna lose money, but they're gonna be okay.
you think so?
Yeah, because they have access. The key thing in situations like that is having access to capital, where you can go to the bank and say, "We having a hard time. I need you to let me hold $2 billion." And a lot of banks will be like, "Okay." I mean, that's how Donald Trump was able to survive financially for a long time during his downturns. He had some really, really rough years where he would declare bankruptcy, 30 times on 30 different ventures or whatever. And the banks would just come through and save him. And now the banks aren't stupid, though. They were loaning money because they knew Trump could make money. So when people say he couldn't make money, he didn't know what he was doing, that's just not true. Most of us can't walk up in a bank and be like, "Here, loan me $500 million," right? I don't care how many times you've been on The Apprentice. Like most people can't do things like that, and so ultimately, it's like access to capital is the lifeline. Like that's the financial lifeline, and I think that's where you get a lot of the economic inequality. And I wish Black people would understand that, like when we're voting and things like that. We don't understand how important these financial lifelines are, especially during times like now, like a pandemic, or when it comes to elevating yourself up. Like most of the time, getting wealthy is like it's a little bit like rock climbing. You know how they climb a mountain, and you climb, like if you're doing it the regular way, you're climbing up chains that somebody else put up there, and the chains kind of pull you up. Well, that's how wealth kind of works. Like somebody loans you that money for the first business, or they loan you the money to get your first home, and then you become a wealth builder because now you own a home and you're not blowing your money on rent anymore. Or they loan you the money, to make your stock investments or whatever. So a lot, NBA, NFL, they have access to capital.
Okay, so the franchise in itself has capital. Um, they can get the capital, but do you think that the players are going to be like their salaries are going to be cut
I
because
think
of it?
I think their salaries will be cut. Like I think that I could see them doing a lockout. Like they did a big lockout in the NBA back in the 96, 97, because Kevin Garnett got signed to like 22 million a year, and that was massive. Like nobody was making that kind of money back then. Everybody was making like 4, 5, 6 million a year, or stuff like that. So when Garnett got his contract with the Timberwolves, the whole league kind of panicked because all the other teams were like, "We can't match that. We're not going to pay $22 million for a star, even a star player." So I think Michael Jordan got 30 million 2 or 3 years later, but he was Michael Jordan. So the owners locked the players out, and they said, we're just gonna shut the business down until you guys make an agreement with us. And the owners handled it masterfully. Like David Stern basically told them, you have to be unified on every single issue that you vote on. He told that to the owners, and the players were not unified because you had diversity. You had some players that were making big money, like the Michael Jordans, and players that were making small money. And the small money players, the ones that were struggling financially, were like, "Look, we need to just take this deal And the big money players were like, no, we need to wait and blah, blah, blah. And it just became chaotic. So the owners actually ended up suppressing salaries, like rookie salaries. Like when LeBron James came in the league, he was easily worth $50 million a year to the Cavaliers, but he was making maybe, $2 million or something like that.
Okay. So does it depend on viewership? Like,
Yeah.
how does viewership calculate into this?
Viewership matters because that's how much you can sell your advertising rates for. So if you have a lot of viewers, then you can go to corporations and say, this is how many viewers we have on these games, and you can buy ad slots, and this is so we charge a rate based on the number of viewers.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. So I think, but with this this Lisa uh
Lisa
Lisa Bonet Jason
Yes.
Momoa thing, what it made me think about too is it made me think about like how little we actually spend, how little time we spend thinking about financial security. Like most people don't think about financial security until stuff goes bad. Like when they have a crisis, like they'll live paycheck to paycheck. And even though you might say, well, look, save just a little bit, invest a little bit, like whatever amount of money you might spend on fast food or clothes or going to the club or going out to eat, save the same amount that you waste.
You know what it makes me think about?
What?
How romantic it is that both of them were starving and they stayed together. Their marriage lasted.
Yeah.
They stayed together. I mean, it's almost like I'm with you when you're down. I'm with you when you're up. We in this together.
That's true.
Like, I love that. They're still strong.
I can respect that.
That's the beauty of it.
Yeah, well, I guess you don't need to be rich to not be an asshole to your spouse.
Yeah, but money, can make you moody. Some people are not in a good mood.
Money is a big stressor. I know I get moody when my money ain't right, but I don't think
really.
Yeah, but that's because
you know what?
Well, the whole time we've been together, my money's been right. But you wouldn't date me when my money wasn't right.
No, you know what? But still, I was still friends with you.
Oh yeah,
when your money wasn't right, and you always had like a laid back. You always kind of had a everything will be okay attitude. Yeah, take that.
Well, I've always been I've always believed that if you have a bad life, like if you're having a bad day or a bad week, why or you hate your boss, like why would you take it out on the people you love?
Exactly right.
Like that's you're cutting off your nose to spite your face. Like that's stupid. Like take it out on your boss. If you hate your boss, go kick your boss's ass. If that's what you really got to do. I don't recommend it because you go to jail for that. But like take it out on the people that it should be taken out on. Don't take it out on the person who's trying to deal with your crazy ass.
Well, if you ever in a pinch, boys, I will come through for you.
Yeah, I think that's an important thing. That's what's funny is just literally based on economic theory, because I'm into that kind of thing. Based on economic theory, just that ability to have a partner and keep a marriage together is a really critical aspect of financial security. Like people don't think about it. They think that, oh yeah, I'm gonna date somebody because she got a big butt and a smile, or he's a nice guy and he's really sweet to me. But no, that's a part of you. That should be a part of your economic plan. Who you choose to marry is probably the most important part of your economic plan, and also how you raise your kids. That's a big important part of your retirement plan. Because if you raise your son irresponsibly, then next thing you know, you got some 40-year-old dude who's trying to borrow your last $5 on your Social Security check, because he want to go buy some weed or whatever, right? Instead of having a son who says, "Hey, mama, you need some help. Let me send you some money, mama."
I don't want my children sending me money or anything, but
if you
their
need
success would be like the best thing. That would be the best payment. It's just their own success.
Well, that's
I don't want them to feel responsible.
Well, that's what rich people get to say, right? Now, what if you end up in a situation where you're really struggling? Like a lot of seniors struggle, right? And this makes me sad because you got seniors out here struggling who got grown ass kids who ain't even thinking about helping mama out. Who can't help mama out, right? And so
if it's moms like me, like I wouldn't tell my children if I had financial problems. If I was struggling, I'd be struggling. I'd figure a way out on my own. I wouldn't put that burden on my child.
Well, I agree with that, right?
I don't know if that's right or not, but I wouldn't do it.
Well, I think it's a mix. My parents are the same way. Like they don't tell me much about what's going on financially, but I always felt like I owed them something for the fact that they were always there for me, and I know how hard it was dealing with me, like as a teenager, and how expensive it was, and And I appreciate the fact that they were able to stay together during those crazy economic times. Like, it takes a vision. Like, you got to really be like dedicated to this thing. A lot of people are like, well, I'm just gonna do me, and I need to go find myself, so I'm gonna go abandon the family. People do that shit all the time.
Abandon the family, really?
Yeah, like you have men that'll be like, no, I want to go be single. Forget this. Or women that that just say, well, what about me? What about me? Like raising children is a very selfless, challenging process where you have to be really dedicated to other people. And some people, I've seen guys, especially like a young guy, like who's like 25. Like my dad was like 25, raising like two kids and coming home to his wife every day. And he's a handsome man. Lots of women would hit on him or whatever. So he could have easily been like, you know what, I'm too young to be dealing with this nonsense.
But he was in love with your mama.
He was.
He loved your mama.
He really was.
That's
but shoot, love sometimes love is enough. Sometimes it ain't. Sometimes people are like, well, you know what?
It's commitment and trust and dedication.
I know guys that are in love with 5 women, and things like that happen, But you're right though. It does. What kept my father with my mother, was not just love for her, and not just attraction. It was he was on code. He had a man code that was given to him by his father. See, a lot of men, they ain't on code. A lot of men don't know what loyalty looks like. A lot of women don't know, ain't on code. Like code means, like being on code means like, if I make a commitment, I made a commitment, period.
That's your code. So you committed to me.
I'm definitely committed to you.
I love it.
If you ever leave me, I'm going with you.
I'm not going.
If you ever decide to leave, I'm gonna be like, well, where are we going? Like, I will be in your suitcase. Like, you can't get rid. No, I'm like, seriously, like, no, it's not. It's like commitment. People don't know what commitment means. Commitment does not mean like, I'm gonna do this until I get uncomfortable. Commitment doesn't mean like, oh, I'm gonna do it, but if it gets hard, I'm gonna quit. Then if that's your mindset, then don't do it. Don't commit to it. Then it's not a commitment, or at least state it as a conditional commitment.
Well, I mean, I think, of course, you have addiction and abuse and all of that.
You do,
where it's kind of toxic to stay.
That's true, but you know what? Back in the old days, if you had a spouse that had an addiction, you stood by them and got them into treatment. And then,
but what if they didn't want treatment? What if they didn't want it, and their addiction just took over?
Well,
I mean, there's couples I know, they have to. You cannot be addicted to something and keep a relationship together.
Yeah, but then I think that that's what we should do. We should change the vows that say, for rich or for poor, in sickness and health, till death do us part, unless something goes wrong. Unless you get an addiction, or unless you piss me off, or unless I'm not happy anymore.
Well, I don't think it's that simple.
Unless the sex gets bad, unless I get bored. Like, seriously, like,
it's not that simple. I think if you're in a situation where someone is just abusing you, they're using substances, at some point you got to love yourself, because it can be damaging not only to you but for the children.
Well, I'm not gonna knock it. I'm not judging people's decisions at all. I'm just saying that, we water down what commitment really means. Like I think a lot of people walk around, they get to take pride in claiming that they made a commitment when really they didn't make a fucking commitment.
Well, what it is one person makes a commitment and the other person isn't, because if they're having addiction, then that means they're not committed to the relationship. They're committed to that addiction. The addiction comes first.
Okay.
So it's at a point where it's just like, what you want? Are you going to choose your marriage, or are you going to choose alcohol?
Yeah. Well,
which one is it going to be?
Well, I'm gonna say this: if you ever got addicted to, first of all, I vetted you carefully as a human being to just see what your core values are. So I can't imagine you coming home talking about, baby, I have a crack habit, right? like you're not that kind of person, right? So I vetted you, right? I made sure, I understood, your character. I didn't just decide like, oh yeah, I like this girl, she's really, really cool, I'm gonna dedicate the rest of my life to her. But then secondly, I'm gonna just tell you the honest to God truth. If you had an addiction, I would probably still find a way around it so I could keep my commitment. I don't want.
Yeah, I think that's important, especially if I wanted to get better. But what if I didn't want to get better?
Then I
drained all your money out.
Then I would lock you out of my bank account. I'd be like, I'm not giving you no money. You my wife, but you can't have access to the bank account.
So you're just gonna have a crackhead. You have a crackhead of a wife.
Well, you know what? I'm not going to marry a woman that I think could be a crackhead. But the thing about commitment that makes it hard, I think people have to think about what commitment means, right? Like people have, like, commitment is a type of risk, right? It's like, and I understand risk really well. Like, my doctorate's in finance, so we talk about risk all the time. And the thing about risk is that you have the known, you have the unknown, and then you have the unknown unknowns, right? Like I know certain things that I gotta watch out for. Like, you better watch out because Alicia gets moody every now and then when such and such happens, right? Right. And then there's the unknowns, like we don't know what's gonna happen if somebody's gonna get, God forbid somebody gets sick or whatever, right? And then you have the unknown unknowns. Like, what if something completely out of this world occurs that you never ever planned on, never expected? I'm going east, right? Or west?
You're going to Chicago.
I'm going sure. I'm going east. Okay.
East.
All right. And like, so what if some shit just comes from out of left field that you never would have thought about in a million years, and you have to adjust to a whole different reality?
Yeah.
I don't think people are ready for the unknown unknowns.
Yeah, and I think like when some of these things pop up, you're right. That is where you have to make a decision. Either you commit yourself, continue that commitment to that person, or you just decide, I don't think I can endure this. I cannot withstand this anymore. It's not worth my time. It's not worthwhile for me to stay with it. Or you can mourn that loss. I'm not going to have somebody.
Then maybe we should think about marriage like getting a job. Like I'm going to work for this company until I decide to quit. And I guess if we see it like that, then that's fine. I think just being honest about it, because I think that when we walk around pretending like we've made these commitments till death, and less than half of them actually go till death, that means that that to me, your ability to keep a commitment shows me a lot about what you're made of.
Well, commitment grows as the relationship grows. You can't just be committed to somebody. Okay, me and you were on a first date. I'm totally committed to you. Like, commitment increases as you get to know someone.
Well, commitment increases when you but
it's
that's
not automatic.
Well, that's why you don't make a commitment until you're ready, right? But once you make the commitment, like my interpretation is, once I make the commitment, I've made the fucking commitment.
All right,
like once I decided, like once I told you I'm gonna do some shit, I'm gonna do it. And that's a code that comes from my father and my mother. My father especially was like, if you're a man and you promise somebody you're gonna do something, like if you tell your 7-year-old you're gonna pick her up at school on Tuesday at 4, you do it. Like the only way you don't do it maybe is if you are in a car accident and you die. Then maybe you got an excuse. But even in a car accident, you get a flat tire, you take a fucking Uber because you don't want to. You are that 7-year-old's rock. You need to show the fuck up. That's what a man does.
Well, you know what? I think that's the reason why I'm so excited about getting married, because you are so committed like that. It makes me feel very secure. It makes me feel like what? It does. It makes me feel secure.
Yeah.
I never have to worry about you. I never have to worry about, because you're all over the place. You travel, you do all sorts of stuff. I never worry about you.
Yeah, well, of that. And so think about that. Think about how much more secure you feel.
Yeah.
Knowing how dedicated I am to doing, to fulfilling my role as a man, as a human being, as a husband. That's what a man is supposed to do. Men provide security, right? And it's not just financial; it's emotional and everything else. And so, and the emotional part doesn't really cost you a lot of money. It just means having the maturity to keep your word and do what you say you're going to do, and if it's a conditional commitment, like it's like, okay, I'm going to do what I say I'm going to do unless this happens and this happens, this happens, then you got to say it that way.
Well, within reason, of course.
Right. Well, yeah. Like I'm just not, I personally think that, that we don't think about what commitment really means. That's why I didn't make a commitment for a long time. Like, people made fun of me. People used to be like, well, why aren't you married? Like I was in my 20s. I'm 26 dating a girl. They're like, why don't you marry her? I'm like, because I'm not ready to make that commitment. I don't know what kind of husband I would know how to be at 26 years old. And I don't really know if I want to be the husband to this woman. Like, why are you, why would people be trying to marry me off when I'm not fully ready? Like, if you make a man get married and he ain't really ready, then don't be disappointed when he can't be a good husband. He wasn't really ready, but everybody's like, get married. Well, okay, when you can force somebody, it's like if I force you to borrow money from me and I force you to sign loan papers and you have like terrible credit, right? Then who should I blame when you don't pay the loan back? And that's what some banks used to do with predatory lending. They'd be like,
You
here,
need this loan.
right, we got to give you this loan, and they give people the loans, and the people don't pay the loan back, and it's like, you know what? They told you who they were. If you look at their damn credit score, or the person makes $25,000 a year, and you loan them $250,000. What did you think was going to happen? Seriously, so don't make loans to people who are not credit worthy. Meaning, don't loan yourself emotionally to people who've not proven that they have good credit. Like that's what it is. Like so no. I mean, I chose to marry you because I thought carefully about commitment and what that means. You know,
Mm-hmm.
and I knew. I said, okay, boys. This is gonna be. You're gonna get a lot of surprises. There's gonna be some time you're gonna see some things that you won't like, or times where you're gonna be a little pissed off, or have some bad days, or bad weeks, or bad months, bad years.
But that's normal. It's like the disillusionment is where you see like flaws in the other person.
Yeah.
And that's just normal. Everybody has flaws. But at the beginning stages, you don't see the flaws.
No,
you just see,
Well, here's what I read.
Uh-huh.
Now you're the relationship therapist, so you could probably correct me on this. But
what you read.
I read that that you really should never commit to a person in the first 6 months of a relationship. Like you just shouldn't. Like you really,
Okay.
like if you commit in the first 6 months, that it's not smart because your brain is full of this chemical called phenylethylamine,
Mm-hmm.
which is kind of like Mother Nature's cocaine, and it gets you really high, and you love the sex, and you're all giddy because everything they do is cute. Even the shit that you just normally would hate, you think it's all cute because they're like you're a crackhead at that.
Yeah, because you're noticing all the similarities at that point. Oh, this person's just like me. Oh, this person does these things. Oh, this person is just like that. Yeah. It can last longer than 6 months, though. It can last up to 2 years almost.
Well, I think they said it starts to wane at 6 months, but
Okay.
and then by 9 months you start noticing all the shit that you really don't like about the person.
Differences. You start noticing the differences.
Yeah, and people form an addiction to that. Like they literally have people called love addicts who literally you ever have those friends that just have these like 6 to 9 month relationships, one after the other. And they meet a new person. That new person is like the greatest thing in the world. And then like when you call them like 3-4 months later, all the stories are gonna be different. Like let me tell you what he did. He's at is it Indiana? I don't go to Indiana, right?
No, you don't.
Okay. Why'd you tell me getting insulin?
Oh, well, it was $2.94. You gotta take it.
Yeah, I don't. I do gotta go. Do I go 294 south?
No, north.
I don't do that, right? I do north. Okay.
Sorry about that. I was just making sure you were taking north.
Okay. We're driving to the airport right now.
These people like that, they don't have very realistic expectations about it, but they have no clue what a relationship is really about. People who are just addicted to the newness of the relationship, and it's very shallow. It's almost like you don't know that person very well, and then you just kind of get addicted to that newness. But real love is after when you decide to stay with that person despite their flaws, and you decide to love that person anyway. That's when real love happens. It's even better than the beginning stages.
Yeah, I like that. And I think I found that love is really like it really is an action. Like it's really like it's a what's the word? It's a conscious decision. Like I don't just feel like I love you. I'm gonna show I love you. Like this morning. Like this morning when I heard you complain about the dishes, you were like, "How am I gonna get the dishes done before we go to the airport?" And so when I went and I washed the dishes,
I didn't even have to ask you boys.
Yeah, well, you know what it was? It was like, if you love this woman, you're gonna wash the damn dishes. I don't like washing dishes, but it's like, why should she feel all this pressure with the dishes when I got 2 free hands right now and I could wash these dishes? Like it's like little things like that. I think that's and it's really when I think about it, it's like seeing what your partner needs and consciously trying to deliver what they need and what they want,
and not getting mad at them for being needy. Some people are like, "What's wrong with her? She's freaking out over dishes. I shouldn't." It's okay. She needs this, and I'm gonna help.
Well, I do think that was a little weird. You do freak out over dishes.
Yeah, but we're going on a trip, and so we have to. The dishes need to be washed.
That's so true. If we left the dishes in that water all weekend, that we would have came back
bugs and everything,
with fungus. And yeah, that part I agree with. Yeah, Yeah, but I really think so I think knowing little things like that is important. I think also like being with somebody who understands that is important too. Because some people are just bad at relationships. They're just bad at love, you know. And it's almost like trying to play a video game or a basketball game with somebody who's a terrible teammate. You
Well,
know.
see, you say the best thing you can teach your child is money and finance and entrepreneurship and all of that. I think the best thing to teach your child is to love themselves, give them self confidence, build up their self esteem so they feel good about themselves, so that when they do get money, they'll know what to do with it and not spend their money anxiously trying to buy love and trying to spend money and going into debt and all of that. There's a psychological aspect to it. So the best thing
Hmm.
you can do for your children is to love them unconditionally.
I think I think that's very important, right? Well, you know what it is. And I guess it's like, and I do agree with that, right? I think self love is very important. Like I
Yeah.
think I think black people we have trouble with that sometimes, and it makes us do things that don't make a lot of sense. Like when they study people that spend a lot of money on like luxury items, like I really got to have me a $700 Gucci belt.
They're feeling a void. They don't feel like they're worthy. And so I have to
Mm,
be worthy with this material thing. They're looking
yeah.
outside of themselves because there's nothing going on inside.
Yeah, I agree with that.
You
Like
know?
that label
And
makes them feel like they're like I am like now I have confidence
right.
because I have a $700 Gucci belt. When some people say like, well, could you have gotten that confidence without the $700 Gucci belt?
And then it wanes, and that's how why that becomes an addiction. Shopping is an addiction because you get that high, and then it goes away, and then you're searching for it again.
That's
Mm-hmm.
true. That's true. Yeah, and I think that it's funny when you talk about loving yourself and
Yeah.
loving, and also to the extension of that, I think about like just knowing how to love other people, because there's some people who love themselves too much. Like sometimes you get OD on self love
Okay.
to the
Well.
point where you become
Mm-hmm.
self absorbed. Like Donald Trump loves the shit out of himself. You know what I mean? Like that's like Kanye West. Like I like Kanye when I talk to him, but Kanye really loves Kanye. You know, and it's it's kind of like okay, there are other people in the equation, and I think that the ability to work with another person in a communal context, like
Mm-hmm.
okay, this is a partnership. It ain't always about me. It ain't always about what I want and my feelings. Um,
Okay,
it's
so
about
that's
us.
interesting. Okay, so in terms of feelings, I think like you really need to be connected to that.
Mm. What
And
do you
that's
mean?
another thing in terms of parenting. When if your child acts out, you really need to ask them, what were you thinking? How were you feeling?
Yeah, I can see that.
And that's part of building up a person's self-esteem because if your feelings matter, then you matter.
I can see that.
And if you grow up thinking that your feelings didn't matter, you didn't matter, then when you do get money, then you're going to really be feeling that void. You're not going to feel content at all.
I can see that. Yeah, I think as a general like courtesy, letting people know that they exist, that they're seen, and that they have a seat at the table is really
Mm-hmm.
good for self esteem for children. Um, I think it's like also a matter like I also think in terms of the balance, like because I can tell you when I grew up, I didn't have that luxury, right? I kind of grew up
What
in
do you
that.
mean?
I grew up in that old school kind of environment where it's like sit down, shut up, you know, quit crying, or I'm gonna give you something to cry about, that kind of thing.
That's
A lot of them.
trauma. I'm gonna tell you, if you grew up like that, that is trauma. And it's so funny, like if you ask somebody when you're traumatized, most people will say no. Did you experience trauma when you're younger? Most people will say no, but if you grew up and people told you to sit down and shut up and you don't matter, you don't mean anything, I mean, that is trauma
Well, I do
in
agree with
some
that.
sense.
I know I do.
Mm-hmm.
I definitely agree with that, right? So I think that part of the benefit of knowing what it's like to go through trauma is that I'm very sensitive to helping children avoid trauma. Like if I see a child going through something
Uh-huh.
that appears to be painful, like I feel obligated to help protect and support that child.
Okay, so that, I don't want to pathologize that at all,
There's nothing to
but
pathologize about helping children.
okay,
I will
yeah,
that I
but
won't accept.
okay, but what I want to point out is that really what you're doing is you're projecting. You're
Right.
projecting. Hold on.
Absolutely.
You're cutting me off now. I say you're projecting the pain you felt.
Mm-hmm.
You're identifying so closely that you're projecting it, and at some point it could be dysfunctional at some point.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? Because you're working through your own stuff, not based on what that other person needs, but it's based on what you need. And so it continues on, and then at some point it needs to be dealt with. That needs to be dealt with because that was your trauma.
I agree. I mean, I think that one benefit that my trauma gave me is it gave me empathy. Like what some might call a projection, I call it empathy. Like I want to help you because I know how it feels. Like you know what I mean? Like if a kid's getting bullied, like I know what it feels like to be bullied. And if I didn't have that trauma, then I might say, oh, it's not a big deal. Like who cares? You know, you'll be fine, right? So a lot of times, you know, that there's I think there can be benefits to trauma to some extent. Not to say that you not to say you want to not to say you want to go through it, but sometimes trauma can make you stronger. Like for example, Navy SEALs put their people through trauma all week long, Hell Week. They call it Hell Week because it's very traumatic, right? And what happens? Well, Navy SEALs are not regular people. Navy SEALs are some bad motherfuckers. Like they know how to do shit other people can't do because they went through that trauma. Like, of going a whole week without being able to go to sleep and, you know what I mean, being shot at and just all these things that, so if you use a tough situation the right way, it can make you better. And people that always protect you from every bad situation that you could ever experience, they're not necessarily making you a better, stronger, more capable human being.
Okay. Well, you do need to be careful. I agree with you. I think you do need to be careful with your triggers. And
that's true.
Stuff like that.
Because you're right, yeah. Navy SEALs are also crazy, right? Some of them, not all of them, but you got veterans that have PTSD.
Talk to their wives. See what their wives have to say.
Shout out to the veterans, by the way. I love my veterans. I have a lot of veterans that end up following me and stuff like that, and I have so much respect for veterans and the sacrifice they make. Yeah, but you're right. I mean, it does come. It's like it comes with a bright side and a dark side. Like everything has a dark side, everything has a bright side. And if you focus on the bright side and manage the dark side, then everything can be used to your benefit. Like losing money. Like I got better with investing partly from losing money. There's no greater teacher than getting your ass kicked. You just gotta make sure you go back and get the lesson. Like buried in every traumatic experience is a valuable lesson. You gotta go back. So maybe that's where people like you come in, therapists, right? You help me process the trauma so I can go back and dig for the treasure.
Yeah, because you keep re-traumatizing yourself. You're like, why do I keep experiencing this over and over again?
That's true. A lot of people live the same life over and over again. Because they have a bunch of unaddressed issues, and that's why I'm a big believer in therapy. I wish more people could see the benefits of talking to a therapist, or or like even there are even therapists that have videos on YouTube you can watch.
Like, let me tell you, there's a lot of people getting on board because I am full. I cannot take another person.
Well, that's because of COVID.
COVID is really traumatizing.
Yeah, like it's like a lot of people are scared to death and losing their jobs and getting addicted to drugs and suicidal now. I mean, it's sad. Yeah, I don't like it. Yeah, well, anyway, we should go. We're almost at the airport. Yeah, thanks for joining me today, babe. I appreciate it.
Oh, well, thanks for inviting me on.
Yeah, I was glad to have you. I was really glad to have you. By the way, guys, you can get a free e-copy of my book, It Takes a Village to Raise the Bar, at that URL, allblackeconomics.com. That's allblackeconomics.com. And also, Alicia is a relationship therapist, and she's going to participate on some stuff that we have going on at theblackloveblueprint.com. theblackloveblueprint.com. That's a film series that we made on love and relationships, and I did that because I think love is actually the key to the universe. It's one of the most important things that we'll ever experience, and if you do it the right way, it can actually benefit you in every way, economically, personally, in terms of fulfillment, and I personally believe that that's probably one of the leading things that Black people have to get better at, is our ability to relate to one another and love each other and support each other and manage conflict with each other, right? So that's what it is. There's my Twitter handle if you want to follow me on Twitter. Thank you guys for listening. We were just talking shit in the morning, so we figured we'd invite you guys to join us on our morning drive to the airport. So I'll check back in a little bit later on the stock market stuff and all that stuff. So have a good day, guys. Talk to you later. Peace.